Welcome to the historic market town of Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. Once little more than a village, the town we see today has its roots in medieval times, when it grew to serve the great Abbey of St Edmund. Local people and visitors alike walk the grid pattern of medieval streets laid out by the Abbey. Edmund, King of the East Angles, was killed by invading Danes in 870, after he refused to give up his religion, Christianity. He was made a saint and was brought here to be buried. The abbey, which housed his shrine, became an important centre of pilgrimage. The abbey itself now lies in ruins, a mass of broken stone surrounded by public gardens. It's difficult to imagine that this was once one of the largest and most powerful abbeys in Europe. This is Moysey's Hall, a medieval townhouse which stands right on the marketplace. It's seen many changes to its buildings and use over the last 800 years, and today it's a museum. Let's travel back in time and see Moysey's Hall as it looked in the 1400s. The undercroft is open, full of stalls, ready to trade on the market. The market is full of bustle, chatter, and cheats. Between friendly gossip and serious deals, it sells everything you could wish to buy, from chickens and fish to curds and candles. You can have your fortune told or a tooth pulled out. Listen to the market folk bawling out their wares.
Fresh time of marigold, fresh time of marigold. Finest wool for weaving, the finest wool in all the land. Eggs picked this morning, fresh eggs, fresh this very morning. My lords and ladies, come try this furniture, see how well it suits you. Sit down in this chair. It comes with the highest blessing from the abbot himself.
Local people, travelling pilgrims, and animals mingle. The noise is terrible, and so is the smell. The stallholders are complaining about the abbey. They have to pay the monks a fee to set up their stalls and give them a share of the profits. The abbey seems to control everything they do, from the food they can sell on the market to when the women can wash clothes in the river. Everyone, from poor folk to kings, is expected to make at least one pilgrimage during their lifetime, and they buy badges in the market as proof of their journey. The Abbey of St Edmund is one of the most popular destinations for pilgrims. Many of the pilgrims have travelled great distances. As they turn into Churchgate Street, they see the Norman Tower, gateway to the Abbey precinct. Behind it, the Abbey Church of St Edmund towers over the town and the surrounding countryside. Everyone lives in the shadow of this abbey that governs the town and the land for miles around. As the shrine became popular, more and more pilgrims visited the abbey, leaving gifts of money for the saint. Over the centuries, the abbots in charge of the abbey ordered new building works paid for with the offerings from pilgrims and taxes from the townsfolk. The abbey is now like a small city, surrounded by a high stone wall. Gates, like this one, are the only way in or out. The west front of the Abbey Church was one of the last parts to be finished. It was built towards the end of the 1100s by Abbot Samson, the most famous of all the abbots. We know a lot about life in the abbey at the time of the Abbot Samson because one of his monks, Brother Jocelyn of Brakelond, kept a diary. He tells many stories, including one which happened after Christmas in 1197. 100 men lay face down in front of the Abbey Church in only their underpants to beg forgiveness from the abbot for fighting with the abbey servants after entering into a competition with them. The abbot threatened the men with the worst punishment there was, to be banned from the church. When he saw them lying in front of the church, they were forgiven, but not before they'd been severely beaten. The church has been built in the shape of a cross, with the head pointing east in the tradition of all churches. The end is rounded in a design called an apse. There was great rivalry between the abbots at Ely and Bury St Edmunds, both of whom wanted to build the longest church. The pilgrims enter the Abbey church through one of 3 great bronze doors made by Master Hugo, who was a monk and a scholar in the time of Abbot Samson. This church is the heart of the Abbey and the center of all life around it. As the pilgrims make their way through the nave, they pass the massive columns and rounded arches typical of the Norman style of architecture. Medieval churches were often painted inside, and the whole of this one would have been brightly colored. In the choir stalls, the monks sing plain chant, hidden behind the screens so as not to be disturbed by the endless stream of pilgrims. Their main duty is to praise and give thanks to God. They attend services in the church throughout the day. The first one is as early as 1 o'clock in the morning, so they sleep in their habits, ready to get up and praise God as soon as the bell is rung. As the pilgrims approach the altar, the colors become richer and brighter. This is the holiest part of the church. Behind the altar lies the end of every pilgrim's journey, the shrine of St. Edmund. This is a great moment for any pilgrim. Within this shrine lies the body of St. Edmund, who was shot full of arrows by the Danes for believing in God. Legend says his head was cut off and flung into some woods, where it was guarded by a wolf. As Edmund's followers searched for the head, they were led to the spot by the wolf crying, "Here, here!" They buried Edmund, and when the coffin was opened some years later, it was found that the head and the body had mysteriously fused back together, leaving only a thin red scar. The sign of a true saint indeed. Here we leave the pilgrims as they pray to St. Edmund. Generous gifts are left by the pilgrims in the hope that he'll bestow his blessings upon them. Let's explore another part of the Abbey, a part that only the monks are allowed to see, the cloisters. Here is where the monks spend much of their time away from the church, where they walk, meditate, study, or write beautiful illuminated manuscripts. This is where Brother Jocelyn would have written his chronicle. One of the rules is that the monks should spend much of the day in silence. When the monks enter the abbey, they make a promise to give up their life outside, including all their possessions and the right to marry. Instead, they'll spend the rest of their lives in the abbey devoting themselves to God. There are about 80 monks here at the moment, and they must all obey the monk in charge, the abbot. The Abbey church is surrounded by many smaller buildings which form the Abbey precinct. Many of these exist to cater for the needs of the monks who are not supposed to leave the Abbey. These buildings include the dormitory, where the monks sleep, the refectory, where they eat, and the infirmary or hospital. The monks stay in the infirmary for a few days each year, for bloodletting. This is regarded as a bit of a holiday. The Abbey tries to be as self-sufficient as possible in providing for the monks. The precinct includes the crankles or fish ponds, and the vineyards where grapes are grown for wine. The monks are supposed to be vegetarian. However, they are allowed to eat meat when at the infirmary or when dining with the abbot. The watermill grinds corn into flour to make bread for both the abbey and the town. The townspeople have to pay to use it, of course, and this means more money for the abbey. Brother Jocelyn tells of a man who built a mill outside the abbey precinct. He was threatened by Abbot Samson and had to pull it down. The size and splendor of the abbot's palace shows just how important he is, responsible only to the Pope in Rome, and he often deals directly with the king. There are many royal visits to the abbey, including Richard I, known as the Lionheart. He came to show his thanks to Abbot Samson after the abbot raised the ransom needed to bring Richard home from fighting in the Crusades. Not far away is the Hall of Pleas. This is the court of law for the entire area of West Suffolk, and the abbot is the judge. The great courtyard is normally a centre of activity. It's surrounded by buildings such as the granary, bakery, buttery, and stables. There were 3 brewhouses in the Abbey precinct. This one belonged to the abbot, who required his own because of the amount of entertaining he did. The water isn't really safe to drink, so it's better for the monks to drink beer. They're allowed up to 8 pints a day. The Abbey Gate is the entrance for servants who live in the town, but come to the Abbey daily to work for the monks. It's also the secular entrance to the complex for anyone who has business with the Abbey but is not a pilgrim. It has been the scene of fierce fighting between the monks and the townspeople. The worst of these riots was in 1327, when the townspeople, fed up with the way the Abbey controlled their lives and took their money in taxes, stormed the Abbey Gate. The gate was destroyed, the abbot kidnapped, and several monks murdered. The abbot made the townspeople rebuild the gateway and imposed a huge fine. Such was the power of the great Abbey of St. Edmund at that time. Today, the great abbey lies in ruins. Henry VIII shut it down in 1539, along with all the other monasteries in the country. The abbey was taken apart by the townspeople, who used the stone to build houses for themselves, and so the abbey fell into ruin. Now you can only just make out the cross shape of the church. The remains of the west front were made into houses in the 1700s. Samson's Tower on the right has been converted into the Abbey Visitor Centre. Here you can find out more about the story of Edmund and the Abbey and take tours around the ruins. If you're lucky, you might meet Brother Jocelyn. The Abbey of St. Edmund is no longer powerful and magnificent, but its presence can still be felt in the town which grew up around it. The local landmarks of the Abbey Gate and Norman Tower still survive, as do 2 of the churches in the Abbey complex, St. Mary's and St. James's. St. James's Church is today known as St. Edmundsbury Cathedral. Chunks of Abbey stone can be seen in walls and houses. The town crest shows the head of Edmund guarded by the wolf. Even beers made by the local brewery, Green King, are named St. Edmund and Abbot Ales. Most importantly, though, the Abbey has put the town on the map and given it its name, Bury St. Edmunds, the town of St. Edmund.